All right, folks, I'm back. This is Cimbolic. This is part 2 of the Council of 12 show that took place yesterday, November 14th, 2009, and the topic was HIV/AIDS. I left off at the end of video 1 talking about testing. Community centers do free testing usually. You can find them on the web. You can find them in the phone book. They are rather confidential. You can get basically, there's quick testing too, where you can get results back in about 20 minutes, though I believe they do have to send the results out, and it may take 6 weeks for the results, but it's only going to take you a few minutes to actually get tested. So it's worth it. Drop in, get tested, and then wait for your results in a few weeks. You can also get tested by your doctor, but if you get tested by your own personal physician, that may go into your medical record, and a lot of people are concerned that that can result in a loss of privacy. And there is still, even though it's been now about 27 years that this virus has been coursing its way through all levels of society and all areas of society, there is still discrimination against people who are HIV positive. So you certainly can get tested by your own physician, but if you have a concern, go to your community center. The Center for Disease Control is recommending that people actually make HIV testing part of their annual exam. Because so many people do have it, and it is easy to contract. And the earlier, of course, you catch these things, the better. So the CDC is recommending that people make this part of their annual exam. Get tested once a year when you have your physical or when you visit your doctor. The sooner you find out, of course, the better, as with any disease or the progression of a disease. There are home testing kits, apparently. The status, Pat isn't completely familiar with this. Some have come on the market. Some have been approved by the FDA and then maybe disapproved by the FDA. So there may be home testing kits out there, but again, you can do the test yourself at home, but you still have to send the results away for lab analysis and of course interpretation. So we're still talking about a wait, but there are home testing kits, just like there are home pregnancy testing kits, except you do have to send the sample away and wait to get the results, unlike a pregnancy testing kit. So I think that about covers testing. Get tested, folks. If you're unsure, if you're going to start a relationship, the best thing to do is get tested with someone. Patricia says we really are in a new age. We cannot just jump in bed with people and just have indiscriminate sexual activity, particularly unprotected sexual activity. So we really need to return to a time that a safer thing to do is to return to a time where people wait 90 days before they have sex with people, build a relationship, get to meet somebody, have a discussion about going down together, getting tested, and then, of course, waiting for the results about 6 weeks and finding out, whether one or both of us, one or both of you, is testing positive. Then you know what you're dealing with and you can cope with it. And just hold off on having the sex. That is the safest way to go. But certainly having unprotected sex is very, very high risk, and you don't want to do that. By the way, the CDC probably has a website with updated statistics. So, as I say, it takes a couple years for the statistics to be gathered and compiled. Now, if you do test positive, you want to go through some counseling. It's a life-changing event to test positive. One of the back to prevention for a moment. One of the problems that people have faced is, as medications have been developed to treat AIDS, it's gone from being a death sentence where you die within a few weeks of being diagnosed to being a chronic, manageable disease. And for some reason, this has had that's very, very good news. It's treatable by meds. People can live essentially a healthy life, a long, healthy life. The problem is this has sort of, in people's minds, reduced the severity of the crisis of the situation. People sort of think, oh, well, there's meds to handle that, so I don't have to worry about contracting AIDS or contracting the virus. It could be handled by meds, so why should I have protected sex? Very dangerous way to think. The fact is that there are medications. It can be treated as a chronic, manageable disease. However, the medications are very expensive, folks, extremely expensive. Plus, you're talking about trying a cocktail of medications. This is a virus that mutates and changes. So it requires, it's not the same as just taking one universal pill like an aspirin. You have to work with your doctor to find the right cocktail and mix of medications to try to keep the virus under control and to strengthen your immunosystem. So it is it is best to prevent this disease and not to contract it, because it is a life-changing event. And plus, once you're tested positive, you need to call everybody you've ever had sex with. Oh, by the way, there is a special test that will let them estimate, a phenotype test that will let your physician estimate possibly how long you have had, how long you've been positive for having contracted the disease, and that will maybe, perhaps it will cut down on the number of phone calls that we need to make when we call people up and say, hi, the good news is I got tested, but bad news is I may have infected you. So in any event, that's the story there. So there are about 30 medications to try to control the virus and suppress the virus. The quality of life is not diminished, doesn't have to be diminished if you stay on the meds and you have a good doctor. Now, in some states, Georgia's among them, but there is a law on the book that if you know that you are infected, if you are aware that you are infected, and you do not disclose to a sexual partner that you are infected, or if you are sharing needles and you do intravenous needles and you do not disclose that you are infected and you share those needles, or you have sex, you have broken the law, which to me is a good law. It's a disturbing law, but it is meant there to protect people and to try to assure that people disclose that they have the disease to sexual partners. However, many people are just not going to follow that law. Many people they just, for a variety of reasons, they fail to disclose that they have the virus. So if you ask someone is not necessarily going to disclose to you that you have it, and some people are embarrassed about having it. They have a self-esteem problem. So even if you ask them if they have it, they may not tell you. They may know they do, but not tell you. So you really, folks, you should have dialogues and discussion with people. You should have these discussions about whether or not either of you or each of you is infected. But ultimately, folks, you cannot believe 100% in what people say. You just cannot. You cannot. You have to protect yourself and take responsibility for your own health safety. So use those condoms and have condoms with you. There are different strains of the virus, so you can have two people who test positive for HIV, but they may have different strains of the virus. So if you are positive, you cannot, when you meet another person who discloses that they are positive, you cannot just have unprotected sex with them, because what you may have done is reinfected each other with another strain of the infection. So you both end up with two types of HIV. So you still have to use protected sex, even if both partners are HIV positive. Suddenly, if you are HIV positive, if your partner reinfects you, you may find that the medications you're on simply stop working, and there has to be a new reformulation of medications to try to get what is now really two strains of the virus under control. So you always have to have protected sex. People who test positive for HIV are not restricted to for sexual partners to other people who have HIV. There can be relationships, what they call discordant relationships, between people who test positive and negative. But it really requires that people talk and make a commitment. The person who is positive for HIV needs to assure the other person and commit to not have unprotected sex with them so as not to infect them. And the uninfected person, the person who tests negative, has to also say, yes, I care about me too, and I am not under any circumstances going to have unprotected sex with you. It's got to be a very tragic situation to basically infect the person you love with a disease this serious and potentially deadly. It is the leading cause of death among young African American women. AIDS is. It's more so than heart disease, more so than cancer. It is the leading cause of death HIV. So it is a very serious thing. We do not want to infect people, and certainly people we love, but we don't want to infect anybody. We don't need to spread this disease. I'm going to have to make a third video, folks. I'll see you in part 3.